The ACN podcast is made possible thanks to the generosity of our listeners and sponsors, including the Agile Alliance. As a nonprofit membership organization, the Agile Alliance is an excellent resource to help you along your Agile journey. To learn more about the Agile Alliance and our other sponsors, as well as how you can become a sponsor or supporter of our show, please visit acnpodcast.org for more information. And thank you for your support. Good morning and good evening, everyone, and this is the Agile Coaching Network. The Agile Coaching Network is brought to you by the Agile Alliance. If you don't know who the Agile Alliance is, go to agilealliance.org. They're a nonprofit organization that's been here since the Agile Manifesto was signed, way back when. This is the first of our podcasts after the Agile 2019, so my brain is sort of full with all of the thoughts and ideas that I took away from spending the week there at the event. So one of the things that I wanted to kick this session off with is one of the thought-provoking things that came up while I was at the conference. One of these things was we were talking about Agile adoptions and how Agile adoptions move forward within companies. And Hendrik Esser, who's with Ericsson, came into the Business Agility Lab, and he did this presentation that I thought really kind of really hit home with me, because I was thinking about the way that we do transformations and the things that we do as coaches in order to help people down the road of being more agile or any transformations within the company. And he started off this presentation with this profound statement, which was, your favorite color starting today is now blue. And he used that as a metaphor for how some transformations happen within organizations, meaning that the company leader comes out, they make the edict of this is what we're going to be moving forward, and then they send you to certification classes in blue and making sure that everyone's now wearing blue t-shirts and blue cups and blue everything moving forward. And now we are moving towards transformation. And for me, the question that came to my mind as I was listening to the conversations that people were having around this is, number one is, at least in my brain, why do we do transformations like this? And is there better ways? And that's the lead-in that I would like to talk about in the conversation today. Let's see, Jorg, would you like to give me your perspective on this?
Yes, definitely like to, Ray. So let's start with the why question first. I think there might be a lot of different reasons. One might be actually that I like blue so much that obviously it's a no-brainer for me to get started with this. And I actually have less patience than I should have to explain a bit more of my experience and reasoning to others. Actually, it's the most simple thing. You know the goal, go for the goal and don't care for anything else. That's definitely one of the whys. The other one might as well be, I'm not really serious, or I didn't really get it. So I have lots of buzzwords and I just need to change anything. So I plug a buzzword out of the air. Buzzword is blue, so let's get blue.
What's your background? I'm kind of curious. What have you been through that adoption strategy where someone just told you that you're going to be agile and therefore agile the next day?
No, never. Luckily to Agile, that didn't happen to me, but on other things, it happened to me that people said, we are now doing things in a different way, and they didn't even act like this. So it was just about mentioning the language again and again, and that I've seen with Agile. Luckily, I was in the better position to know that this wouldn't work, but people who always say, now we are agile, we want to be agile. And if you ask them, what actually does that mean? They say, everybody knows, or we are faster. So yeah, I've been in that position and more or less on the receiving end, even in the middle management position of tell the people that they have to be blue. And best way out of that, at least sometimes, is to do the 5 whys and try to get to what that really means and then translate it to something that might still be blue, but with much more depth.
And I thought what's interesting about the concepts of making edicts is that it really doesn't enlist people in the transformation effort itself. Hendrik went on further when he was talking about this, and I think he hit a spot-on moment when he was saying that what we do in transformation and transformation work is about how do we create opportunities for people to fall in love with Blue and to fall in love with Agile. And that experience of using it enables people to embrace it deeper.
So I think, in answer to the question why we do transformations like this, I think part of it has to do with the way that we shop. People who are looking for something, we spend all this time going online and making sure we check the reviews and get the perfect thing that's going to suit our needs. And I think it has to do with a basic feeling of fear that we might make the wrong purchase, right? That we might get the wrong thing. So if someone's paying a coach to come in, they want to be told that, yes, this is going to fix everything. This is the thing that's going to deliver. And I think it sort of pushes a lot of the conversations to be that way. When in my experience, if someone asks me to come and help them, they say, oh, I want you to implement this solution for me. One of the first questions I ask them is, well, what's the problem that you're trying to solve?
Right.
And that we really need to shift, the old saying of sell problems, not solutions. We need to focus on coming to a shared understanding of what the problem is first before we can really move to a solution. And that when we sort of leap to, oh, this is the solution that's going to work, we are kind of saying, yeah, Blue is the thing that you're going to get. It's going to work for you just like it worked for other people, and shut up and like it, which of course doesn't work very well. And of course, the real question is, well, how do we get people interested in trying this thing that they may not yet understand? How do we get them to engage with this when they're looking for a guarantee or a sort of ready package solution?
Right. What are some of the strategies that you use in order to do that, which you just described?
I mean, it really does go back to that idea of focusing on the problem first and really making sure that I understand the problem and that not just that I understand it as a coach, but that I work with the people that I'm ostensibly trying to help to make sure that we all of us have a shared understanding of what that problem is. There's the old saying, which is people don't want a drill, they want a hole, right? The problem they're trying to solve is I need to run a cable through this table, so I need to drill a hole in it, something like that. When we go to a solution immediately without engaging on what the problem is first, we run the risk of, having the wrong solution, or maybe even having the wrong problem to start with. And so to me, running in and saying, oh, I'm going to make you do this new Agile thing is akin to me just running into a room, waving a drill around. People have no idea, wait, what are you doing? What is this for? What are you trying to achieve? So some of the ways, concretely, is simply talking to people and asking them, what are the problems that you see? I think like a good product owner, you also have to read between the lines of what they're saying, and you have to understand what exactly is their need. What is their need based not just on what they say, but on how they're behaving and how they're interacting with teammates, if you're talking about a team level thing, or how teams are interacting at a larger level if you're looking at a transformation at enterprise level.
Right. And I think what Jorg was saying earlier about the 5 whys, which is how do I root cause this and not just treat the symptoms, I think becomes important. And I know that from my own personal experience, coming into different companies, one of the things that everyone starts with is, I want to be agile. And it sounds very robotic. And you actually then push into the why do you want, what business goal are you trying to achieve? And I know a number of companies have a real hard time answering that question in the very beginning of that. Elena?
I just wanted to share a little tip, probably even a stupid tip, about how to make other people fall in love with Blue or whatever you want to make them choose for themselves. Years ago, when I was working on a company as a team member, the company decided to move from a traditional waterfall approach to a more agile approach. And I don't know if the managers decided to do that on purpose, or it was just a decision dictated from casuality, but they decided to make just one part of the team started using Scrum. So what happened was the other part of the team was really curious about that, and they wanted to try themselves as well, but they couldn't at the beginning. So when at the end all the team was allowed to start participating in the Scrum meetings, everybody was already excited to do that. So it's just a stupid tip, but sometimes just to make other people be curious about that and be willingness to start something new.
Sure. So in this case, they created the opportunities for people to join. Were they required to go and do those things, or it was sort of an optional thing? If you want to try it, you can try it.
At the beginning, for the people who were not allowed to participate, was kind of frustrating because they didn't understand why is this happening, why these other people are allowed to do that, why we have to work in the traditional way. But after some time, when everybody was allowed to work in the same way, everybody wanted to do it naturally. It was not imposed to anyone.
So you had a bunch of people who were jealous.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is pretty fun. Renelle.
Yeah, so answering the question about the transformations, while we do transformations like this, for me at least, because I have a IT background, I know that a lot of times we do the transformation because we're trying to get to market faster. And we want that the next widget that we build for it to get to market before our competitors and things like that. But I do agree with Matthew with what he was saying as far as, having a shared understanding, because some of the challenges that I've seen, and I'm currently a Scrum Master, some of the challenges that I've seen is that, you'll have organizations where the teams may have tried Agile before, and then when you become a part of a new team, they'll say, oh, it doesn't work, and they have a list of reasons of why it doesn't work. So when it comes to your second question of what are some better ways, some of the things that I've tried to do is just ensure that we do have a shared understanding of how Agile can fit the organization, and not just the organization, but as well as their work streams, because people have to be able to identify how can it help them. And then the other thing is when they have had bad experiences with Agile before, I always try to get kind of survey what are those concerns. And then that way I can, figure out how we can, work through those challenges so we don't end up with the same roadblocks.
Right. And yeah, I know that an amount of my work that I've done over the years, there is an amount of bad Agile that's out there and bad experiences. And I feel like sometimes I'm more psychologist and helping people to repair bad situations that have happened in the past. So I see that. Good points. Scott, what do you have?
Okay, so I have a few things that kind of address the conversation as it's gone so far. So Elena said, why is there just one team doing it when everyone else is kind of sitting by curiously? So very commonly, when a organization decides to take a step towards exploring the value of Agile, they'll practice something called scaling up excellence. And so they'll very specifically select a team of people who are going to embrace and be champions of a new way of doing things, so that they can provide the entire enterprise an example of what it looks like to adopt something new and be able to move very fast doing it and provide value. That way, it does create a natural curiosity and a desire to be more like that team that is your pilot or your example team. It's a scaling up excellence principle. So
that's cool.
So just kind of answer that one. Back to the sort of original topic, where blue is, I have a metaphor I'd like to apply. It's one of my favorite metaphors. So everything about like the 5 whys, and start with, as a coach, finding out what the problem is before you start to apply any solution. is all absolutely true. And as a coach, I think one of the most important things that I preach or teach is I'm trying to encourage other people to head in the direction of being coaches, to put as many tools in your tool belt as possible. So if blue is a hammer and the only thing you have in your tool belt is a hammer, then everything starts to look like a nail. Mm-hmm. And that may not be the right approach for any particular solution. So the more tools you can put in your belt, the more things you understand, whether it's Scrum or Kanban or lean principles on top of Agile, scaling methods, all this sort of thing. And the more you can put in your belt, the more directly applicable to a business situation that you may be able to apply. So blue might not be the right thing. It might be red, or it might be green. It might be the drill that we talked about as a tool rather than the hammer.
Those are all great points, man. I like that. Amit, are you there?
Yes, hi. So I just wanted to mention that I worked on a pilot project in my company a few years ago. The objective was to bring Agile into the organization. So the way it was done was that a few people from IT and a few people from business kind of got together, and they had clout with the CIO. And there was this new project that had visibility with the CIO and the C-suite. So they chose that project, and the objective was that IT be more responsive to change and requirements. A few select number of people were chosen that were enthusiastic about Agile, as the person before me just mentioned. So the neat thing about the way this project was run was that the project manager kind of walked the team members through how they would work differently, and that the normal weekly team meetings that were there would be replaced by daily stand-ups, and then the time boxes would be there. You would have your 2-week time boxes instead of your phases or your 1-year-long project, and then you would have your task list and your lightweight design instead of heavyweight design. So I think this sort of a mapping kind of gives you the exact certain precise things to work towards.
Well, thank you for that. Let's see. Pavel, what do you have, Pavel?
Hello. Yeah, I'm also do kind of consultancy in the Agile sphere, and I really agree with the previous people who said about reasoning. And my approach to the transformation is actually I run design thinking exercise, and let's say follow the steps before I come up to the solution to a particular organization, because every case is unique and the challenges are very different, and solution as well. So I follow this approach, and it really gives you a better understanding of inside organizations, people, culture, and you can tailor the particular approach. Either go evolutionary with one particular team and make a pilot, or maybe the revolution is important there. There is no room to wait of the change. So
that's very good. And let's go ahead and pivot at this point. So we're going to go off to the main questions. So the top question that we have up here, what is the best way a Scrum Master can show that they are valuable to the organization? And I know we've had a similar conversation about metrics around Scrum Masters and a number of different variants of this. It's back up here. Let's go ahead and have that conversation. Jörg, what's your impression of?
Yeah, a bit hidden in the question. Let's put it like this. It's about the value of the organization. So what matters for the organization, and the organization is, in that case, most often the people driving it. So if you add value to this, and you can point this out, it's the best thing you can do. So, for example, if you're talking to a CEO, don't try to explain to him the details of what you're doing. Try to show him how you empower the team, how you get better results, how you drive for what matters for the customer, for example, because that might be his pain point. So ideally, those pain points, and you're anyway working towards this, which is quite natural. But building this bridge between what the organization needs and how you contribute, how you put that as a basis of the team learning, all those other things. And obviously, there's just share the success that you're and the team having, because that's as well an important point. Sometimes it's just about talking about what's happening and projecting this feeling that arises with agile transformation and speed and feeling of achievement. And sometimes it's just make it visible.
Okay. Shashank, what do you think the best way to show Scrum Master value to the organization?
I think the Scrum Master is supposed to be a servant leader on the team. And with this role, the most value he or she can add is by showing that servant leadership quality and making sure that the team is in line with the agile principles and agile methodology which has been set, and coaching the team to kind of adhere to these principles, as well as going back to my previous point of servant leadership, making sure that he takes a back seat instead of directing, just trying to resolve the day-to-day issues and making sure that the team is in line with the principles.
Right. So in the case of like the servant leadership, getting stuff that the team needs to be able to do their jobs effectively, would you keep a scorecard of that? How would you, at the end of the month say, well, I did 15 impediments, or do you think that's a good way of being able to show that your servant leadership is bringing the team what it needs? How would you do that?
It's a good question. Never kept a scorecard, but I think regular feedback from the team, keeping a scorecard in terms of having the team contribute to saying what went right in the sprint in a retrospective meeting and what went wrong, and also assessing a Scrum Master's role and his value in the sprint as well. On a direct one-to-one feedback with the team, the critical members of the team would actually help him also to understand what has been the shortcomings regularly and improve upon that.
Okay, well, cool. Thank you. Steve, what do you have?
I think there's two answers to that particular question. One is if the Scrum Master is embedded in the team and performs other functions, then I think since there is no incremental cost to the organization for that Scrum Master, then it becomes a matter of a discussion about how they're bringing value via servant leadership to the team. Mm-hmm. I think, however, if the Scrum Master is either a dedicated position or is an outside consultant, there's a different measure for value, and it needs to go back to the previous discussion that there should be some well-defined expectations that are agreed between the Scrum Master and the organization, because it's hard to deliver what you don't know they want.
Right. So establishing the goals and measuring against those goals, whether those be KPIs or other things, but directly, would you, and I think I hear this all the time when I hear Scrum Masters, and actually just leadership positions in general have this issue of, I'm not doing the work. Those people are doing the work. What do I bring to the party? How do I measure that I'm doing that well? How do you make that distinction between the two of those? Or do you somewhat take credit that the fact now that the team is doing well in Scrum, or they're doing well with some other Agile method, that was partly due to my training, but partly due to what I gave the team?
And again, I think for organizations that have transitioned into a Scrum model, there's going to be the status quo. So right. If the team was producing at X level before, hopefully the team is now producing at a higher level, which exceeds the cost, the incremental cost of adding that Scrum Master, right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for that. And David?
Well, I kind of echo what Steve said. Working agreements are key, and also, managing expectations ahead of time. But to me, it's all about focus, right? Why is there even a Scrum Master position in the first place? It's to keep the team focused on the most important work and focused on delivering value to the customer, right? So it comes down to the point where, so many times I start working with Scrum Masters and they're a glorified facilitator. They start the meetings and they run the Scrum board and that's about it. But it's so much more than that. It's getting the team focused on what's getting done, right? That's the first thing. Is so many times when you let a development team go off and do their own thing, they don't get stuff done. It's, is it done? Well, it's compiled. No, is it done? And trying to focus them on getting those small chunks of well-engineered thoroughly tested software done and then work on the next most important thing and the next most important thing, that's where the true value comes into play, is keeping the focus where it has to be. And to me, that's where the Scrum Master really shows that they're valuable, is that at the end of the day, every sprint, every release, every quarter, every whatever, you are delivering value to the customer. And when a team goes off the rails and they're not delivering that value, or they're having problems meeting commitments, that's when you start to talk to the Scrum Master and say, what kind of experiments can we do to get the team back on track?
Right.
So it's like two phases. Number one, set your expectations. Have a talk with your manager and say, this is what I expect to do. And I also coach some Scrum Masters if the manager doesn't understand the position, because in the end it's a lot of soft skills, right? It's dealing with what I call yucky human stuff. Not necessarily I can't say that my team finished this many stories and this sprint they finished this many stories and they improved, so they're better, right? No, and some managers struggle with how do I manage the Scrum Master, or how do I do their review or whatever. And what I'll coach those Scrum Masters to do is keep a weekly log. Talk about what you did each week, what experiments you ran, what was successful, what wasn't successful, what kind of stuff you did with the team to make them more successful, so that people understand the value you bring. Sometimes you have to be your own self-promoter, right? But that's kind of the way it is sometimes.
Right. Well, I think in today's world, I think we all are now need to be better self-promoters. So, no, thank you for all of that. Lynn, are you there?
I'm an outside contractor that was hired in as a Scrum Master Agile coach. So one of the things that we try to do when we go in is to talk to it was the product manager in this particular case, but talk about what does success look like for them, and then tell them that you don't get there overnight, and show them, bite-sized pieces with each iteration or each week. I just had a month review with him. It's like, so how's it going? And, just the little things. And then it's all about relationship building with the team and everybody close to the iteration, and then backing up from there.
Right. So when you're making this list that you go off and you do the review, so do you schedule, who would that meeting be with? Would that be typically the other leaders in the organization, or is it with the team as well?
What does success look like?
Yeah.
That one. It started out with one of the leaders. He's a VP. And then just talking to the product owner, who's a very strong product owner, but she'd been taking on everybody's job because they had a very weak Scrum Master. So talking to her about, you can let go of the wheel a little bit and have more time to meet these goals, because this is what the organization is looking at. And a lot of it was from her. What are they looking at from her to take care of? So She's been really good about, I see, I need to get to this point. If you could take these things off my plate, and then that builds trust because you have to follow through, right? And then making sure that the team knows that she's backing off, you're coming in, and that it's just really transparent.
Okay, just keeping that transparency level as high as possible, and socializing what I found was, especially as a coach, and metric systems and everything, especially in big companies, being very clear about this is what we're working on. And those other things that you might be caring about, yes, we want to consider those and bring those into the plan, but don't be surprised if those things don't move because we're not working on them right at this particular moment.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's see. Ranul?
So I think one of the ways that a Scrum Master can show value is just ensuring that the team is self-organizing. So what I focus on with the team is making sure that they have the right skills, whether it's the developers that are on your team, making sure you have the right folks that are able to actually help us to deliver successfully during the sprint, as well as with the product owner. Like in some instances, you may have a new product owner that may not necessarily know about release planning or road mapping or anything like that. So if it's in my toolbox and in a previous role that I've been in and I'm able to help with some of those things, I'll sit with the product owner and help with that. But if it's something that I'm not, like on the developer side, if it's something that I'm not able to help with, then I just make sure that we have the right folks that's able to do it, folks that are a part of the team that have the correct skill set, and then get training for the team where they need. And then also, I think one thing that's important with the Scrum Master showing value is also ensuring that you remove interruptions. And because a lot of times you'll have people that walk up and just want things from the team or send emails and expect things to get done right away. So I think removing those interruptions and also removing impediments when they do have issues where some things get blocked maybe by other things, and just kind of creating a structure where they can be successful and just focus on what they do best. I think that that's a way that you can also show value. And then when you're trying to just kind of communicate that value to the higher ups, one thing that I'm doing is I'm actually tracking our progression as we're adopting to Scrum. So all of the things that I've have us working on each of our iterations, I just show our progress and make sure that I'm tracking all of that and also tracking our velocity trend as well. So.
Okay, those are really good things. Question for you on the velocity thing, because I know that sometimes senior managers get a little bit hung up about, hey, velocity of team A versus velocity of team B. How do you get around people starting to conflate, success in one team versus success in another? Just curious.
Yeah, actually, that's been a topic of discussion just with our organization. They actually just brought in a third party to do an assessment. And that's one of the things that they're talking about. How do we know, even when we're increasing in velocity, that let's say if one team, their optimal velocity is, let's say, for example, 35 points, and then another team is 25, but they're both delivering, right? So how do you actually know that, okay, the team that's delivering with 25 points is as successful as the one that's delivering with 35? So we're trying to figure that out. I guess that's the long answer. Yeah, we're still working through that and trying to figure that out.
I can tell you that one thing as a coach over the years that I've learned is that I rarely share out velocity as a metric, just because of the issues that apples and oranges. A bias team is different than what I would have in a hardware team, which I have different in a middleware team, so on and so forth. And so the velocity points are relative to the team. And I found that I've confused a lot of senior managers of even trying to go normalize that number. And those are years of my life I don't think will ever come back, unfortunately. So I would caution against that. I just posted up a poll, and the poll says that we should pivot. And we're creatures of the crowd, so we're going to go ahead and pivot to the next question. I don't think we've ever had this question before. Is how does an agile transformation differ from digital transformations? I'll just kick off and just say, I'll be brutally honest. And this is sort of like when the DevOps movement was starting up. I would corner anyone who was trying to sell me about a DevOps methodology. I would challenge them to a whiteboard and say, could you please define for me what DevOps is? And I could tell you that every single consultant that came up trying to sell me something while I was at Intel had a different answer on this. And I didn't do this at the last conference, but I did ask the question of people when they came to the Business Agility Lab. I'm involved with the digital transformation, and I would ask the question, oh, what's that? Could you let me know what a digital transformation is? And I got a different answer from each. And so that's been at least my perspective on this. Jorg, what have you had with digital transformation and in the middle of it?
I've been more than once in this discussion, what is digital transformation? And to me, it's a lot of things, which means your experience I can absolutely share. I don't think there is a simple answer. Digital transformation closest to my business experience and maybe most interesting to me is the business experience. So moving business from local to digital and thereby scaling it and making new business models and more competitive business models appear. Just to give you an example, that is sports. So when sports goes onto television and streaming and everything, it suddenly gets digital. Not the people in the stadium are the ones really paying the bills. And suddenly people can earn millions and hundreds of millions of dollars and euros in that one, while the other ones only marginally less successful. I don't even want to say good. They are earning comparatively less and less, and that actually is a digital transformation in the way it makes the leader leading much faster and the followers scraping behind.
I mean, versus analog. I mean, but
yeah, in a way, versus it's about the factor of multiplying. Really, digital is the best way to describe multiplying a product.
Okay.
In an unlimited way, like copying digital music. If you have to record the record on tape, it's still a bit laborious. So then it's not the full transformation. Downloading music just makes it even faster, and even more money for the most successful people. Exactly like analog. So making copying much harder. So at one time, music business was people going to opera halls and having an opera singer in every city. So then it moves on. That's one of the takes, but there are lots and lots of them. And Agile is maybe a way to get this software done that drives this business. But that's it.
I think Matthew has an opinion on this as well. Matthew, what do you have?
My thoughts on this is digital transformation, if you think about it, is more of a transformation of how people interact with technology. Mm-hmm. It's a change in the way that we interact with tools that we use to do our job, whereas an agile transformation is a transformation involving the interaction of people. Mm-hmm. And so that the two, it's like to compare the two is like comparing apples to oranges. You know, to say that comparing a digital transformation to an agile transformation, in my mind, is impossible to do, because they have two totally separate ways of looking at things.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, the agile transformation space, and by the way, Agile has had the exact same problem as what I just described earlier when opening this about the digital side, which is agile transformations, at least for me, are about the mindset shift of the organization. It's about following those 12 principles. Digital transformation, and I think you're alluding to how we interact with machines. It's how do we get off of paper. And as you know, in a lot of older companies, still, there's a lot of stuff still pushed around in an inefficient way. And so I think digital transformation is the ability to gather information, business intelligence, the business component side of it, and how do we do that effectively? That, to me, you're right. I think it's a different vector.
Right, exactly. So I wouldn't try to compare the two personally. Okay,
that's a great opinion. Amit.
Yes. So I have very limited experience with these terms, but I mainly heard them in the context of, digital transformation in the context of automating business processes, while agile transformation is essentially delivering software through agile processes against waterfall processes.
Okay, that seems reasonable. And let's see, anyone else? If I don't get any other hands, I'm going to go ahead and pivot to the next question. Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and put that one in. The next question comes from Jennifer. Jennifer, I hope you're on the call, because here comes your question. What is the best practice for user stories added after the start of a sprint or an iteration, like something that comes up in the middle of your sprint and needs immediate attention? Who would like to kick that off?
So the question is a bit of how to deal with interrupts in a sprint. And one thing is normally supposed to get things done, so don't get interrupted too much, but as well be prepared for a bit of flexibility. So one thing is really understanding the urgency and the scope of what needs to be done. Have a conversation with the team. What is the trade-off, and whether it's acceptable and still gets things done. And worst case always is if the urgency is extreme, the effort is significant, and even maybe the type of work is different from what you're currently doing, stop the sprint and make it very clear that, yes, this interrupt costs the organization. If they want to pay the cost or need to pay the cost, so be it. Then it's, again, somebody has to pay the bill in the end. So get the work done and get back to what you're doing. But best thing to finish what you're currently working on, plan it with the team as fast as possible.
Okay, great.
Or push it off to the next sprint.
Jessica, your mic is now active. What do you have?
So this has been a real problem on our team for a while now, that we have a support team that handles all of our end users and escalates issues to us. And we have tried to solve it a couple of ways. The first is with a set of team agreements. So every sprint we were running up against some production emergency or something that just absolutely had to be addressed now, or the world would be on fire. Mm-hmm. And we took this to the team, and as a self-organizing team, we decided, here are the scenarios that we've seen over the last several iterations, and here are the criteria that we use to judge whether or not we pull a ticket into our sprint. And if a question comes up in the future that is outside of the team agreement, then we have another discussion about, do we need to adjust the team agreements? But essentially, for our team, what we decided was that if there is a production emergency that does not have a workaround, we pull that in. If it's something that blocks our next release, we pull that in. And we build about 10% of our capacity each sprint for these kind of unplanned unknowns, so that instead of now missing our sprint goal, sprint after sprint after sprint because of production issues or what have you, we now have capacity built into every sprint for that. And if we don't use it, then we pull another item in from the backlog.
Okay. So keeping enough capacity, one, to go support these things when they occur. And did you use historical data to say how much capacity needed to be left there because of just past
Yeah, we
stuff?
Closed our eyes and threw a dart at a board and decided that would be it. And I think it's important to kind of make a decision, see how it works, and then pivot if you need to, expand or reduce the capacity going forward. But 10% is what's worked for us so far.
Oh, good point. Good point. One of the things we did, at least back with my experience with Intel Corporation, we used to have this concept in the factory called hot lots. And hot lots were a record speed through the factory. And each general manager was given sort of a ticket. They were given 2 tickets a year to use the hot lot capability. And they only had 2 that they could use. And the question would always come down when somebody from senior management would say, hey, we absolutely have to get this done now. And we would say, do you want to spend your ticket for that? And what would happen would be the manager would sit there and go, well, maybe I don't want to spend it for this. And we found that we adopted that also into some of our Scrum teams, where the senior management was a little bit, look, a squirrel, let's go that way. And we would ask them, do they want to spend their ticket? And we would discover that they didn't. So the priority wasn't exactly fully there. Ashley, what do you have?
So I actually have a really great solution that working with a team that does maintenance and support, they actually came up with this concept, and I've actually heard it from another team since then. We call it the Velocity Guardian, but I've also heard it described as the Geek of the Week.
That sounds like a superhero.
Exactly. It makes it fun. They came up with it. It's a totally team comprised concept where we actually take one of our devs out of the capacity and we put them kind of on reserve to handle production issues, but they also work. We have a big bug backlog. I was going to ask Jessica, she's part of my team, because it all sounds very familiar. But we have a big bug backlog as well. So when our Velocity Guardian is not managing production issues, they're working on the bug backlog, they're doing tech debt, they're doing DevOps support. So we have a variety of tasks that we kind of have for our Velocity Guardian during a sprint. And if there's not prod support issues, then they're working on those things. If there are, then they have that capacity. But that person works on not committed work, so that way it doesn't impact any of the data or metrics for the sprint. The sprint commitments are upheld. If it's a issue that needs to be done within the sprint, it goes into the team. But if it's something that needs immediate attention and doesn't disrupt from the goals, then we hand it off to the Velocity Guardian, and the team rotates that in a schedule.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That sounds pretty cool. You should write a blog about that. I would get that up on the Agile Alliance site. I'd love to see that.
Sure. Yeah, team loves it.
Cool. Yeah. Just reach out to me and we'll make sure you get you published. Let's see. Last comment, because we're running out of time. Avinash, do you have something real quick to bring us on home for this?
Yeah. No, this particular thing, I raised my hand is because, see, sprint, to bring up the stories, bug, or any of the items when the sprint has started, I deal with this thing in a 3 or 4 different way. First is to keep a buffer, which is close to 20%. Now I have a team. I have 3 teams. So some of the teams are quite a big size, which are not like book definition like 6 or 7, has almost 15 people. And in this, I always I have stories and bugs brought in middle of the sprint, and we fix it. And the capacity. So another thing, I was a buffer. The second one is the how we do is one of the stories added. We the less priority work, we turn it into a spike where we do the analysis, and the following sprint, we address the less priority story. That's one of the things. We leverage the high priority work versus low priority work. The other one is when we are doing the capacity planning, we do the 6 sprint average velocity, and then we also measure how many people are taking time off, vacation or PTO or holidays. We take out that time and we come up with a capacity, like for example 120, 130, 140 or something is there. We take average. We reduce that number by what's actual hours are.
Thank you for all that. We're reaching the top of the hour. So everyone, thank you for this month joining the network. This is your first time. I hope that you found a good experience for us, just sharing ideas back and forth. If you want to see me in person, I'm going to be at Agile World Forum over in Portugal on September 29th. After that, a couple days after that, I'll be also over at the XA Experience Agile 2019, which will be talking about business and technical agility. And then the following day after that, I'll be in the same city, but we're going to be looking at Agile Human Factors 2019. You can find those. Those will be soon posted up on the Agile Alliance site. Lastly, coming up into October, you could find me over at the DSM Agile 2019 in Des Moines, Iowa. And then I'll announce other things as we go. If you find me there at those events, let's sit down, have a conversation, keep this taka going, because I'm sort of a junkie for these types of conversations. So everyone, thank you for this month, and I hope you guys have a great, productive rest of the day, and of course, see you next month. This podcast is provided by the Agile Alliance for educational and informative purposes only. To find out more information about the member-supported Agile Alliance, please go to agilealliance.org to find out about more upcoming events, as well as different programs that are available to help you with your Agile journey.